What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be discussing the one offensive coordinator candidate that we know of that the Detroit Lions have interviewed for the position. Also, Mark Ingram is now a free agent. Should the Lions be interested? Let's get it started.
I got to shout out DoseOfDion, man, because it was actually the first time I went live on YouTube. And, guys don't know DoseOfDion. He put out a lot of good content for the Detroit Lions.
Welcome, everybody, to a video. Glad you guys are here. We're back to talk some Detroit Lions. Now, Mark Ingram has been heavily requested by you guys. I appreciate it. So we will talk about some Mark Ingram into today's video. That will be towards the end, because first I want to talk about the offensive coordinator spots, and I have a couple of other side notes that we're going to discuss first. Yeah, we got a lot of notes for this one. Well, first off, the Lions have requested an interview with Philadelphia Eagles special teams coach Dave Phipp. As we know, we fired Braden Coombs when Darrell Bevell was the interim head coach. So they requested it. I don't think they've been accepted to actually have the interview or not yet. I'm not sure. Yeah, no, I'm good. I just got done recording. I was just telling them about the Dave Phipp. Oh, they denied it. I just told them that they requested it. They already denied it. Okay. All right, I'll let him know. So the Eagles denied it. No Dave Phipp. I don't know what to do now. Dan Campbell told us today in his introductory press conference that he's already interviewed like 4 offensive coordinators and 4 defensive coordinators. So clearly the Lions are searching, which also goes to the report I've seen about Darrell Bevell, which is saying that it's unlikely that Darrell Bevell does return as the Lions offensive coordinator. So we'll talk about that really quickly. I kind of want to see Darrell Bevell brought back. And let me explain why I want to see Darrell Bevell brought back. Well, there's also this side note that Sean Ryan, our quarterback coach, has left to Carolina. So that means if Matthew Stafford is our quarterback next season, that will be the 7th quarterback coach that we've had. And I think that does speak to the inconsistencies and stability and lack of consistency we've had at the top. And that's why we keep getting new coaches and new offense coordinators and new quarterback coaches. Now, some of it is because they're leaving for promotions and things like that. And obviously, you look at a guy like Jim Bob Cooter, who became the offensive coordinator, but it still speaks to our inability to find consistency at the top. So hopefully, Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes can find that. I really hope, please. But with the offensive side of the ball, one of the biggest reasons I would like to keep Darrell Bevell is because I did like the thought of having some consistency on the offensive side of the ball, especially for Matthew Stafford. I look at it, Darrell Bevell, who, number one, brought the best out of Matthew, and it really wasn't that close. I mean, you talk about 2019, his first year here. Stafford's coming off a 2018 season was just not that good for Stafford level, and it was like, wow, this is not very good. So we bring in Darrell Bevell, and in the first 8 games, Stafford's playing as one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I mean, Matthew is balling out, 19 touchdowns, 5 picks, on pace for 5,000 yards, having his highest passer rating, highest yards per attempt. And it's like, man, this is fun to watch. Then he gets injured and he has to work with Jeff Driscoll and David Blau. 2020 comes around and it's not the same start. Not bad. It just wasn't as last year, which was all the expectations were super high. It wasn't that great. It wasn't until Matt Patricia was fired. Then Darrell Bevell took over as the interim head coach, and in the last 5 games, we're only going to count 4 because that one game against Tampa Bay only threw like 3 passes. In those 4 games, Stafford was back to putting up those same type of numbers that he put up in 2019 in the first 8 games. 106.2 passer rating. Not normal for Matthew to have that kind of thing. 106.2 passer rating. I mean, you're talking about a guy nearly 300 passing yards a game and 67% completion percentage without Matt Patricia. I mean, Matthew Stafford under Darrell Bevell has been his best, no question about it. Now, that isn't to say that someone else can't bring really good out of him. I'm just saying what we know is that Darrell Bevell was able to bring a lot of good stuff out of Matthew Stafford. Plus, offensively, I have a similar face to look at because, 2 years offense coordinator, like that's not a good thing. You never want to have to keep resetting. However, I do completely understand it if Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes want to go another direction because, hey, look, it's your opportunity as that coach. You do what you got to do. Don't let coordinators, not hold you back, but necessarily keep you away from doing exactly what you want to do. It's your opportunity. Do what you're going to do. Go all out for it. So I understand if he's not brought back. I just kind of want to see him brought back. But if he's not, I get it. And it looks like he's probably not going to be. So the offensive coordinator that we know of that the Lions have interviewed, well, not the offensive coordinator, but the offensive coordinator candidate that we know of is James Urban. Now, James Urban has a couple of things going for him. Well, one thing he doesn't have going for him is any connections with Dan Campbell. He actually has no connections with Dan Campbell, which is kind of interesting because you talk about a guy like Aaron Glenn, who Dan Campbell told us he wanted to bring in for DC. Obviously, there's obvious ties there. But you look at a guy like James Urban, no ties whatsoever to Dan Campbell. I'm not saying this can be the hiring. I'm just saying there's no ties whatsoever here. So maybe it's something about his style. Maybe someone told him about it. I'm not sure. But I do know this. Marvin Jones Jr. and Mohamed Sanu both played with James Urban when he was in Cincinnati as the wide receivers coach. Oh, snap. Hold up. Did they tell him about him? Because on Twitter, Marvin Jones Jr. and Mohamed Sanu reacted to the Lions interviewing James Urban. So this one must have got leaked somehow. But they reacted to it like, oh, snap, hold up. Urban? Like, he said Urban? Like, hold up, James Urban for real? So there are some ties there, and that could help the Lions in free agency trying to lure a guy like Marvin Jones Jr. back, or, I mean, hey, even a Mohamed Sanu back, right? So, you know, maybe they'd be a little bit like, hey, yeah, I'll play with that guy. That's my guy. And then maybe we get some more 9/11. I'm just saying, not the emergency, but the Matthew Stafford and Marvin Jones connection. Whereas James Urban, man, let's talk about him a little bit. So James Urban goes back to the NFL days when he started in the NFL in 2004, where he was the assistant to the head coach in Philadelphia to 2006. Then in 2007, he became the offensive quality control coach through 2008. In 2009, he became the quarterback coach to 2010. Then in 2011, he went to Cincinnati, like we said, the connections with Marvin and Sanu. All the way into 2017, and most recently 2018 to present day, he's working with the Ravens as their quarterback coach. So not an offensive coordinator in the past, but a quarterback coach and a wide receiver coach and a quality control and an assistant to a head coach. Okay, so he's had a few different roles that he's been a part of. So let's take a look at who he's worked with. We got to take a look at how those quarterbacks performed, right? We have to see how they performed when he was the quarterback coach. So going back to 2009, which was his first opportunity as a QB coach, he worked with Donovan McNabb. Now, I hear Donovan McNabb, I think, oh, mobile quarterback. The weird thing was Donovan McNabb only had, in that 2009 season, the guy only had 140 rushing yards, which is not a lot when you're thinking mobile. That's not a lot. He played in 14 games, so that's what, 10 yards a game? I mean, that's not a lot of yards. Maybe I just have the wrong perception of Donovan McNabb. That definitely could be the case. Or maybe he was a little bit older. Wait, was 2006 when McNabb was on the cover of Madden? Oh, snap. That was my first Madden. Okay, anyway. So, 2009, he completed 60% of his passes, 22 touchdowns to 10 interceptions, 253 yards passing per game, and a 92.9 passer rating, like I said, 140 rushing yards. Pretty good numbers for McNabb. Now, the other couple games was Kevin Kolb for Philadelphia, who completed 64% of his passes when he was in, 4 touchdowns and 3 picks, 148 passing yards a game, and an 88.9 passer rating. Honestly, not bad for a backup quarterback. And between the two, 7.9 yards per attempt. I always like to look at that now because I know that's like what Matthew wants to do, is he wants to push the ball. So we always look at that. Then in 2010, as the quarterback coach once again, his second year is this. Now he's with Michael Vick. So now Michael Vick takes over, and he was, I think, the third string before. Now Vick takes over as the quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. And in 12 games for Vick, obviously we know that Vick was a rushing quarterback. He was a mobile quarterback. And in his first season, Vick, in 12 games, completing 62.6% of his passes, 21 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, 251 yards per game, and a 100.2 pass rating. That's some good numbers from Vick for sure. Kevin Kolb did play in 5 games because, again, Michael Vick didn't play in all of them, where he completed 60.8% of his passes, 7 touchdowns to 7 picks, 170 passing yards a game, and a 76.1 rating. Okay, not the best for Kolb, that's for sure, but I guess that's why he wasn't the starter. Fast forward ahead all the way to 2018, where he then joins Baltimore as their quarterback coach. In 2018, he's working with Joe Flacco. I believe this was his final year for Joe. Yeah, it was the final year for Joe Flacco. He only played in 9 games where he completed 61% of his passes, 12 touchdowns to 6 picks, which is a 2-to-1 ratio, 273 yards per game, and an 84.2 passer rating. Okay, not bad numbers, but obviously it was kind of towards the tail end of Joe Flacco era. Then Lamar Jackson played in 7 of the games that season, where he completed 58% of the passes, 6 touchdowns to 3 picks, 75 passing yards per game. Wait, hold up. 75 passing yards per game? Okay, interesting, 75. And an 84.8 pass rating, but he had 695 rushing yards in 7 games. Okay, that's who Lamar is, and that's what they've been able to do with Lamar. Then in 2019, you move on to his MVP season, where he takes over as starter, plays in 15 games, 66% completion percentage, 36 touchdowns to 6 picks, 208 yards passing per game, which honestly isn't a lot, but again, he runs so much, and a 113.3 pass rating with 1,206 rushing yards. Then this past season, 2020, 15 games, 64% comp, 26 touchdowns to 9 picks, 183 yards passing per game, 99.3 passer rating, and a little over 1,000 yards rushing. So I first look at this and from an outside view, I'm like, oh, wow, these are a lot of mobile quarterbacks. But then I take a look, okay, Donovan McNabb wasn't like a super big rushing quarterback. You know, Joe Flacco, obviously not. So it was really a lot of Lamar Jackson, which makes it look like that, which is good because that means if you have an offensive coordinator that's worked with both, you could have more flexibility with who to draft. To me, when I look at this, it doesn't tell me that, okay, Lions are moving on for Matthew, they're going mobile, he's gone. If they make this hiring, that's not how I'm looking at this, because I look at the quarterbacks he's worked with. He's worked with a few guys that haven't put up like crazy rushing numbers, but I see it as still the best quarterback is who's going to play. I mean, you look at a guy like Joe Flacco, right? Yeah, Joe Flacco lost his job to a mobile quarterback in Lamar, but Joe Flacco wasn't playing that well, and Lamar was playing, I guess, better. I mean, not much better, but they were doing better as a team, so they went with Lamar Jackson. I mean, he hasn't had the greatest pocket quarterbacks. Donovan McNabb, look, he didn't have a lot of rushing yards. They go with the best quarterback. You look at a guy like Campbell, his background's with Drew Brees. They didn't start Taysom Hill because he's mobile. They start Drew Brees because he's the better quarterback. So it's going to be who's the best quarterback will start. But what I do like is that it will give you flexibility because this guy's worked with both pocket and mobile quarterbacks to a degree. So it gives you that flexibility, and most quarterbacks in this draft, I feel, are more known as a mobile type of deal. So it'll give you the opportunity to help develop those type of guys. We saw him do it with Lamar Jackson, and that could help you out for the future, instead of having a guy that's only worked with one quarterback his entire time. Now, Darrell Bevell also has that. He's worked with Russell Wilson. He worked with Matthew Stafford, who's a big part of bringing in Russell Wilson. So he has both. Obviously, he's worked with backups. So, but what it does give the Lions, like I said, it gives them the flexibility that whoever they draft, they could potentially develop because he's worked with both types of quarterbacks. It doesn't mean that Matthew's out because they do this, because the best quarterback will start. And number 9's here. Odds are number 9 is going to be the best quarterback on the roster, so he will be the starter. But for the future, it gives you opportunity to develop any type of quarterback. And that's great because you do see a lot of mobile quarterbacks coming up. I also have this I want to show you guys on the screen right now. So these are the pass ratings that were put up by the Bengals in his time there as the quarterback's coach and as a wide receiver coach. Now, this one's kind of difficult because I don't know what this really means. I didn't really know how to gauge this, right? I wasn't like, okay, how do I gauge how well he did as a wide receiver coach? I mean, some of the wide receivers, obviously the two, Mohamed Sanu, AJ Green, that he worked with, and then you look at a guy like Brandon LaFell, who did well with the Cincinnati Bengals. Interesting name, AJ Green. He's going to be a free agent. Now, I know he's older, but I'm just saying, if he's here, that could be a place where AJ Green's like, maybe I'd be interested. He's a little bit on the older side. Maybe takes a little bit less money if the Lions lose some receivers, and maybe that's a route that they could be interested in. Maybe you take a pay cut to come to Detroit to play again with his boy Marvin Jones Jr., and all of a sudden return into the Bengals. And heck, at that point, you might as well just bring in Marvin Lewis as DC, right? I'm sorry. I just wasn't sure how to really judge, how well he was doing as a wide receiver coach. So I kind of just did passer rating, which maybe more to the quarterback. But I don't know. I wasn't really sure how to do it, okay? I'm sorry. I don't really know what to look at for that. But he does have connections with Marvin and with Mohamed Sanu. So that could be a big selling point. But again, no connections with Dan Campbell. Kind of interesting. So that's James Urban. Now, on to the Mark Ingram side of things. A lot of people would ask me to talk about him. And I think this is really interesting, okay, for a few reasons. See, Mark Ingram gives you another option. Now, apparently in 2019 offseason, I think the Lions were interested in trying to bring in a guy like Mark Ingram. They eventually, I think, re-signed Zach Zenner, and that's why that didn't happen, double Z. But they were somewhat interested. I think they were one of the final 5 teams interested in bringing in Mark Ingram. Now, at that time, he was a little bit younger and maybe looking for a little bit more, bling. But he ended up not going to the Detroit Lions. Now, that was because he became a free agent after his time with New Orleans. See, there's a clear connection here, and that comes with Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell obviously just left New Orleans. Well, you got a guy like Mark Ingram who was drafted to New Orleans in the first round of 2011 and stayed there through 2018, most recently ending up with the Baltimore Ravens, which, now that I think about it, could be why James Urban was... Wait, that wouldn't make any sense. Maybe if James Urban is hired as the OC, now we're really talking for Mark Ingram. Hold up, that's 2 connections. Wait a second, okay, I didn't even think about that. But the thing with Mark Ingram this past season is he really lost his starting role. He lost his starting role with the Baltimore Ravens, and he kind of became just a mentor to Gus Edwards and to J.K. Dobbins out of Ohio State, which was fine. Really, up till this season, I mean, the guy was still incredible. He is 31 years old now, and he's 5'9", 215. See, I look at it like this. The Lions need a number 2 running back. All right, that's just my opinion. I'm going to stick to it. The Lions need a number 2. Yes, we have Swift. I love Swift. Swift is far and away our best running back. It's not that close. But Swift makes our offense line look much better because I don't think it's terrible. I just think we need a good running back. I think running backs matter. I mean, I love the thought of, hey, you don't need a running back as long as you block. That's true. But running backs do matter because there's a difference in players with vision, able to make guys miss, able to find the hole, speed. Like, there's definitely a difference between Swift and Kerryon. And I like me some Kerryon, but there's a difference there. My thing is the Lions need a number 2 running back. And I don't know if that's Kerryon because we didn't get to see him enough. I don't think it's Kerryon. Adrian Peterson, I like AP near the goal line, not my number 2 running back. Swift can be my number 1. I need a number 2 to go with him because the numbers that Swift is putting up compared to what AP and what Kerryon did tells me that's not an offensive line issue as much as it is you have a very talented running back and 2 running backs in Carolina that's maybe not as talented, maybe can't read the holes as well. And an AP who I think is a very good vision, he just ain't the same player he used to be. That's why he's so good at the goal line, but, he's not going to be your every down back, or he can't be your every down back. So for me, I look at it and I say, okay, Lions need a number 2. Can Mark Ingram fill that role for me? This is an interesting move because, again, the ties with Campbell, but also because Lions only have 5 draft picks. So if you don't want to use one on a running back and get a very talented running back, then that means you could be looking at signing a free agent. And Mark Ingram could be the guy to look at. I mean, because of his lack of a role this past season, where he only had 72 rushing attempts, still averaging 4.2 yards per carry, which is pretty solid. Only 6 receptions on 8 targets. He did have 0 fumbles in 11 games. That could potentially lower some of his value. Now, right now, he is allowed to sign with a playoff team. So for the conference championship teams, he could jump on one of those teams if he wanted to. But in 2019, just a year ago, the guy had over 1,000 yards rushing for the Ravens, 5 yards per carry, 26 out of 29 receptions, and only 2 fumbles in 15 games. The guy still has it seems. However, some people have stated from the Baltimore side of things that he seemed to lose a step this year. So was this year his year to kind of fall off the cliff a little bit? And maybe you're a year late for this. Maybe this isn't the move. I would like to add a number 2. My question would just be straight up, is this the year to do it, or are you a year or two late to bring in Mark Ingram? A guy like Mark Ingram has best games against the Texans, the Bengals, and Dallas. Texans not a very good run defense. The Bengals are kind of a complete mess. And, the Dallas Cowboys were one of the worst defenses in the league. So, yes, his numbers look good in certain games against really bad defenses. So I'm just kind of concerned if this is the year that he fell off or not. If you don't land one in the draft, I would probably take Mark Ingram over AP as my number 2. I love AP near the goal line. And I'd probably take him maybe even over Carrion, maybe. I'm just a little bit worried. If you put up last year's numbers, and of course, 2019's numbers, heck yeah, bring this guy in. I'm just a little bit worried that he may have fell off the cliff. I don't know, though. I mean, I'm not sure if he did or not. It's really hard to judge. He's only 31. AP's older than 31. He's, still getting the job done. It's about mismatches, right? It's about matchups. So if he gets a matchup where he feels like he can dominate on the run game and he wants to, you got to have a number 2 for me, because I don't want Swift being a bell cow. I don't want Swift getting 25 carries a game where I'm like, okay, hey, yeah, this guy's getting hit over and over and over. He's not built like Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry can take that, right? He's not built like that. And I don't want him getting hit that many times. He's a guy that you can line up and slide. He reminds me a little bit of Kamara. I mean, I guess you could try, but I just wouldn't want to give him hit that much, especially after the whole concussion thing that already went on this season. And I guess it's kind of funny that I compare him to Alvin Kamara, because that's what the Saints were doing for a little while there, was Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram as the number 2. They were kind of going back and forth and splitting there. And that's kind of what I want. I'd almost mimic my team more off of the Cleveland Browns way of doing things with Nick Chubb and your Kareem Hunt. Right, you have the 1-2 punch going on there. There's not many teams in the NFL that don't have a 1-2 punch. I mean, even Christian McCaffrey has a Mike Davis behind him. But there's only a very few amount of running backs like a Derrick Henry that can be the bell cow in the NFL. You don't have that many in the NFL. A lot of teams go to the multiple running backs, at least 2 really good running backs. The Lions could have that. They could have their Kareem Hunt, their Nick Chubb. And you look at what the Browns are able to do. It makes Baker Mayfield look incredible because you have such a good run game. Just the run game in general makes your team so much better. It will make the defense better if you can run the ball. Dan Campbell said that today, right? It makes the defense better if you can run the football. It sets the tone for the game. So if I can have another running back out there where I can run the ball, if Swift ain't there, I can still run the ball, set the tone for the game, take pressure off the defense, take pressure off of whoever the quarterback is. I like that. So I'd almost follow that where the Browns are really successful. They got that running game. They can't be stopped, and that travels. Rushing the football always travels, no matter what weather. I want this guy to be my number 1, but also have a guy to be able to take pressure off of him, like a legitimate number 2. Not my number 2 where, hey, yeah, Kerryon Johnson, AP came in, now I'm in trouble because guess what? During those games, we can't do anything. We can't run the ball at all. It's basically having no rushing attack. You're having basically no threat of rushing the ball when he's not there. That's not good. You got to have a threat. If you have no threat, then we're back to being a one-dimensional team all of a sudden. Yeah, you can add offensive line help. I think you always can add offensive line help. But Swift has already shown us that, yeah, you can run the ball really well behind this O-line with a really good running back. And one thing I think I like about Mark Ingram is that you see it from 2019. Look at his catching stats. The guy catches about 80% of his passes. I mean, yeah, they're out of the backfield, but 80% of his passes for his career, that's pretty impressive. 26 for 29 in 2019. Like, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. And heck, even if he did fall off the cliff, 4.2 yards per carry is better than what Swift and AP put up last year. I don't know. But if the Lions aren't able to draft one because of their limited draft stock and because maybe some limited funds in free agency, this might be one of those moves that you can make because of the ties. They'd be willing to play here for kind of cheap, and you could take a chance on it for next season. I just know we need a number 2 running back, and I want to get one. So, Mark Ingram, comment down below. Do you think the Lions should be interested in signing him? They were before. Also, James Irvin, what you think? Thank you, Pride, for watching, and I'm out.